In the autumn of 1886, on a wind-scraped shelf of land in the Montana Territory called Windhaven Flats, while every neighbor stacked sod, hauled stone, and nailed board over board against the coming cold, one man knelt in the frozen dirt and planted trees. Row after row, not in a straight line the way a windbreak was supposed to run, but staggered, crooked, gapped, wrong. The freighters who passed slowed their wagons to watch. Nobody understood why. Nobody asked. They only remembered the name later. His name was Elias Ward. He was 45, and he lived alone but for an old gray dog that never left his heel. Behind his cabin lay a grave, small and wind-worn, and a coat still hung on a peg by the door, far too small for a grown man. He rarely spoke. When the store owner counted his coins, Ward would nod once and go. He did not ask for credit. He did not ask for anything. Men who carry a loss like that learn to keep their hands busy, and his hands were busy. 73 saplings that first season, pine, cedar, whatever would take root in that thin soil. He set them by pace and by eye, some 4 feet apart, some 10, some clustered in loose rings that seemed to circle back on themselves. He'd dig, kneel, measure with a knotted cord, move on, the dog watching from the turned earth. Children threw pebbles and called him the Orchard Fool. The name spread through Windhaven Flats before the first frost. A man planting shade where no shade was needed. A man growing a forest around a house he'd likely freeze to death inside. Silas Boone said as much, loudly, and Boone was worth listening to. 50 years old, the largest cattle herd in the valley, and eyes on Ward's land, because a spring ran through it that never dried.
Trees don't stop wind. A wall stops wind.
And a carpenter did agree, Tucker Hale, who'd raised half the barns in the county.
Saplings that thin would snap in the first real gale.
That was the thing. Their argument was good. Ward gave them no explanation, no reason, no apology. He bought his nails, went home, and planted. He'd learned it from a dying man. A trapper who'd wintered 40 years in these hills had told him once, before the cough took him, about a hollow up north where the wind came down like a fist and simply stopped, died in the trees. "It ain't a wall the wind wants," Pike had rasped. "A wall it can climb or pile against. Give it something it has to fight through over and over, and it gets tired. The cold looks for walls." Ward never forgot the words. He built his whole strange forest around them. The work broke him down slowly. He rose before light and knelt until his knees went numb, his fingers cracked and bleeding around the cord. Young Tom Doyle, the widow Hannah Doyle's boy, 11 and fatherless, took to carrying water for the saplings without being asked, and the dog took to following him down the rows. The 3 of them worked in silence, mostly. Once Tom asked,
"Why do the rows bend that way?"
So the wind never runs straight.
Then he went back to digging. The first blow came in November, and it took the outer ring. A hard gust flattened a dozen young trees, snapped them at the root. Boone laughed openly at the store.
Sticks against a storm.
Ward walked his rows at dawn, saying nothing. He saw what the wind had done, how it had funneled clean through the even gaps and hit the trees like a battering ram. So he replanted them tighter on the windward face, looser behind, breaking the flow into pieces. It cost him 3 days and 40 new saplings. Boone watched him do it. Boone, for once, did not laugh. Old man Renner did the strangest thing of all. Renner was 70, had buried 2 wives, and outlasted 3 winters that killed lesser men. And the whole valley trusted his weather sense like scripture. One gray afternoon, he rode out to Ward's place, dismounted, and walked the rows without a word. He stood in the center of the staggered rings, turned his face to the north, and listened. He laid a hand on one bent trunk. Then he mounted up and rode off, and he did not laugh. By December, the dog wouldn't sleep by the fire anymore. It lay by the north wall, ears up, listening to something no one else could hear. The ice came early. The birds were gone. The wind, which never stopped on Windhaven Flats, went utterly still. Renner stood on his porch that evening, looking at the horizon, and said to no one,
"It ain't coming. It's gathering."
Ward walked his rows one last time, not from doubt, but from habit, and went inside. It hit before dawn, 58 miles an hour, snow so thick a man couldn't see his own hand. In the Boone house, the finest in the valley, frost crawled up the inside of the walls. They burned wood twice as fast as they'd planned, and still the thermometer read 41. Cattle drifted and died against the fences. That same dawn, Tom had been caught out on the flats fetching a strayed mare, and it was Ward's lamp he ran for. Out on that crooked shelf of land, the wind hit the first ring and split, hit the second and slowed. By the time it reached the cabin, it was a tired thing, curling harmless around the walls, and the snow it carried piled into long protective drifts exactly where the trees told it to. Inside, the dog slept. The boy read by the lamp. The thermometer held at 61. Once, Ward opened the door, looked at his working forest, and closed it again. He did not smile. He only nodded, the way a man nods at a debt finally paid. When the storm broke 3 days later, Boone came trudging through the drifts, expecting a wreck. He found a warm cabin, a sleeping dog, and a man who had lost everything once and refused to lose anyone again. "I was wrong," Boone said, just that. By the next spring, 2 families planted trees, then 5, then all of them. Nobody said orchard fool anymore. They called it a shelter belt, and they still do. Elias Ward never beat the storm. He simply understood that you don't stop the wind, you make it tired. And sometimes, that's enough. So tell me, do you think Ward was truly brilliant? Or was he just willing to listen to what the land had been saying all along?